I want to share a few notes on format so everyone knows what to expect. Each candidate will have 3 minutes for opening remarks. We'll then move into 6 questions with 90 seconds per answer. There is a timer on the screen that you, myself, and the candidates can see. If a candidate goes over their speaking time, we will allow them to finish their sentence and then move on to the next candidate. The speaking order was randomized and will rotate with each question. The candidates have been told how many questions will be asked and the order of responding only. At the end, each candidate will have 3 minutes for closing statements. You'll find links to each candidate's website in this chat as well. And with that, let's get started. And so I am going to invite each candidate to introduce themselves, beginning with Jason Landau Goodman.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much to DCLMN, Sarah, Daniela, and all those involved in organizing tonight. Thank you as well to all of you for engaging in this vital conversation about what comes next for our communities. My name is Jason Landau Goodman, and I'm a 4th-generation Lower Merion resident, environmental attorney, and civil rights advocate, community organizer who has over 15 years of senior legislative experience in Harrisburg, and I'm asking for your support to become our next state representative. We know the horrifying nightmare we are living through right now with a corrupt federal government alongside grave policy failures that are making life unaffordable. I am here to get to work with you with clarity and decisive action about what we will get done at the state level. Our communities are desperately asking you to support someone sharp with skill like me to meet this moment. Democratic voters are hungry to elect individuals with unshakable values and no-nonsense precision, working closely with our partners and standing right up to every bully. Your state representative is your closest lever of power within our large state government. They are your persistent advocate, accessible civic leader, and someone who you are putting serious trust in to do the right thing, even when it's the hard thing. That's who I am, and that's who I will continue to be. Through helming a statewide civil rights organization, I've worked closely with House members, senators, and the governor's administration for over 15 years. I've become among the more seasoned political strategists in Harrisburg of my generation. I've talked the talk and walked the walk along as an advocate, state government attorney, and leader in Lower Merion, with scores of legislative battles under my belt. I have deep and respected relationships in Harrisburg and across the Commonwealth to fully prove those credentials. I will be specifically focused on the issues impacting our communities, especially affordability with healthcare and utilities, environmental protection, and infrastructure development, particularly improving our roads, bridges, SEPTA funding, and downtown revitalization. I will work every day and night on your behalf towards these goals and delivering top-notch constituent services whenever you need help. Listen, ICE is already here. Healthcare and utility costs are crushing individuals and families. We have neighbors being killed by speeding cars on Montgomery Avenue and bridges in disrepair. Many of us fear our lives will be irreparably worse than our parents and are scared for what's in store for our children and grandchildren. Enough. We draw the line here and now, and we do this through sending the right fighter with the heart, drive, and experience to get this job done. That's me. The qualities we want in a state rep, responsive and adept representation, whose identity is deeply rooted in Lower Merion and Narberth, have always been part of my character. To help, to organize, to heal the world in whatever and whenever possible way we can. I sincerely hope for the opportunity to serve you and get to work right away with the grit and determination we need right now. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And now we're going to move on to Megan.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming out tonight to listen to the candidates, and a big shout out to DCLMN for putting this together, and how fitting it is that the night of this forum is the same day that Governor Josh Shapiro gave his budget address. My name is Megan Griffin Shelley, and I'm running for state representative because I've lived here my entire life, and I am actively in the community doing the work. This is not just a job for me. This is who I am, how I live, and what I want to continue to do in Harrisburg on behalf of all of us. I know how to coalition build. Excuse me. I know how to coalition build and how to bring the right stakeholders to the table so that we can form policies in service of our community. Because that's what I'm doing every day working in state government. I see my job as a state representative to make sure that your voices are heard and acted upon. And I've dedicated my life to public service, whether as a school teacher or now currently serving as an elected municipal official and chief of staff to Montgomery County State Rep Nancy Gens. And our campaign here is focused on 3 key issues. The first is affordability. We need to be making sure that we're doing more so that first-time home buyers can afford a home and be able to start a family in our communities. We need to make sure that insurance companies and utility companies face rate reviews. And we need to raise the minimum wage. $7.25 an hour is truly an abomination. And I am in support of Rep. Ronnie Green's legislation to raise the wage and encourage you to go to my website so that you can sign on to the petition in support of that effort as well. We want to be able to have more people spend more money right here in our communities. The second is healthcare, and critically women's healthcare. We need to be focused on maternal health and on access to reproductive health care, working to prevent period poverty, and making sure that we codify into our state constitution the right to an abortion. And finally is democracy. I don't know about you, but I read the news in the morning because I can't read it at night or I will have nightmares. And honestly, I still have nightmares anyway. ICE is here in our communities. There was just an incident in Penn Win the other day. We need to work to hold this federal administration accountable, and we can do that at the state level. We need to make sure that we have a Democratic trifecta, work hard to flip more seats in the House, flip our Senate, and reelect Governor Shapiro. And if I am the candidate who is endorsed in this race, I see it as my job, as my duty to get to work right away, raising money, knocking doors for Democrats in flippable districts, because there is no time to waste. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. And next, Leo.
Salutations. This opening speech is in 2 parts. The first is a recognition of our present reality, and the second is an appeal for us to dream. Let us begin by recognizing our present. Even in the 3 or so weeks since I last spoke before the committee in a public forum, it appears as though our American condition has deteriorated. Since I last spoke before the committee, Alex Preddy joined a long list of people killed by federal immigration enforcement operations. Just last week, 2 people were taken right here in the district in Penn Win. Disturbing is the first word that comes to mind. Disregard quickly follows. ICE and the federal administration at large have demonstrated a disregard for the rule of law and a disregard for the value of human life. With ICE, it is essential that we know our rights, resources, and how our local systems will react in the event of more ICE action. Regardless of what's to come, I will be here to fight for our community, for every neighbor. I bring up ICE. I attempt to recognize this part of our present reality because I believe there is real weight in the words of a friend of mine. This past Saturday, after a difficult conversation, she stopped, turned to me and said, "Leo, why do you spend time thinking about policy when people are being disappeared?" It is a very good question. It is a very fair question. I want to introduce myself today by answering it. I think about policy, I clock in at work at Penn Law and write about the minute details of criminal justice reform, and I'm a candidate in this race because I dream. I picture a better future, and I refuse to let the horrors of the present define what can be. You're here, spending time away from work, hobbies, and families because you dream too. We envision a future where our public transit systems are accessible, reliable, and supportive of the workers who drive the buses and trains and of the environment. We envision a future where our schools are excellent and so are the schools across City Line Avenue. We envision a future where reproductive freedoms are formally enshrined in the highest echelons of Commonwealth law, directly in our state's constitution. This vision is critical. It is at the heart of resilience. If we can envision it, if we can dream, then we can build. I'm a builder who dreams. I'm a public school graduate, a public transit commuter, and a researcher who studies the path to a more just society. I'm proud to have been a student advocate at Lower Merion High School down the street and at the University of Pennsylvania. I'm proud to have been a union organizer and a member of Representative Mary Jo Daley's district office team. The British writer T.E. Lawrence famously wrote, "Dreamers are the day who may act on their dreams with eyes open to make them possible." I'm delighted to join you all tonight to discuss the future we can build. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you for being here as dreamers of the day.
Thank you, Leo. And now Andrea.
Good evening, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. I'm Andrea Deutsch, and I'm running to serve as your next state representative of the 148th District. For more than a decade, I had the honor of serving our community on the Narberth Borough Council and later as mayor. During those years, I attended hundreds of council and committee meetings and worked on issues ranging from public safety and zoning to supporting our business community and strengthening the quality of life in our town. Public service has taught me something important. Leadership is not about the headlines. It's about doing the hard, sometimes unglamorous work of making thoughtful, informed decisions that serve the entire community. Making those decisions isn't theoretical. It requires listening carefully, weighing competing priorities, and staying grounded in your values. Throughout my time in local government, I focused on long-term solutions rather than short-term politics. My guiding question was always, what's the best for our community? In making those decisions, I regularly dealt with and applied state regulations and rules. In fact, during COVID, when I was in charge of the public safety of everyone in the borough, I regularly applied guidance from the state in making these decisions, and those decisions led to Narberth having the most successful health outcomes in Montgomery County. In addition to my public service, I bring 22 years of experience as a small business owner. I founded and operate Spots, the Place for Pause. Running a small business has given me firsthand insight into how state policies affect entrepreneurs, workers, and families. I understand what it means to navigate state and local regulations and to feel the impact of tax and developmental decisions in real time. When I talk about supporting small business and growing our local economy, I'm speaking from lived experience, not theory. I also bring a deep understanding and commitment to healthcare advocacy. For the past 15 years, I've worked at the state and federal levels to protect and expand access to affordable, comprehensive healthcare coverage. I regularly speak in Washington, advocate for the state marketplace penny, and I've testified before the U.S. Senate Health Committee about the importance of coverage for people with pre-existing conditions and extending the tax benefits of the Affordable Care Act. Healthcare policy isn't abstract to me. It affects me every day of my life, and it affects thousands of families in our district. These experiences, local governance, small business ownership, healthcare advocacy, in addition to being a trial lawyer for 10 years, have given me a practical understanding of how policy decisions are made and how they affect real people. I know how government works at the local level, how it intersects with state authority, and how to navigate the complex systems to deliver results. I'm running because I believe our district deserves thoughtful, principled, effective leadership grounded in
Thank you, Andrea.
integrity. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, thank you for those intros. Helpful for us to get a sense of your priorities and who you are as candidates. And so the first question, which will go to Megan, and just again, as a reminder, each candidate has 90 seconds and we'll rotate the order of each question. And so Megan, the first question is, have you ever worked to get a bill passed in Harrisburg? And if so, what was the result?
Thank you for the question. So as working in state government for years now, and most recently as the chief of staff to State Rep Nancy Genst, I worked with Rep Genst and Rep Kahn and Rep Warner on a bipartisan bill that aimed to address the crippling shortages in healthcare that we are seeing across our state, especially in our rural communities. And so that bill is currently still in the House. It has the support and co-sponsor of over 40 people of both parties and the support of the Pennsylvania Coalition of Nurse Practitioners. And right now we are in what is the fun part of it, which is trying to, make sure that we can work to push through the bill. It's currently in the Professional Licensure Committee. And so we're still in the stages with that bill to get it passed through into the Senate and hopefully onto the governor's desk. And it has been a really great experience being able to work on that bill on an issue that really is key to my platform, which is healthcare affordability and accessibility. So that would be the bill that I would highlight. But again, being a chief of staff, there are a lot of different bills that we've worked on and that we've been trying to push through.
Great, thank you. Leo, please let us know if you've ever worked on a bill to get passed, and if so, what the result was.
I have, yes. Thank you for the question. Indeed, I've worked with current Representative Mary Jo Daley over the course of several months, close to a year and a half now, on a piece of legislation. It's called HR 165. The point of the legislation is to bring clarity to record-keeping processes for county-level pretrial detention. Pretrial detention is the holding of men and women, citizens, or just any member of the community in jails prior to their trial. So pretrial detention is enormously disruptive to life, to the way that people go about their days, interact with their families. Of course, they're in jail. The nature of this resolution would be to, bring clarity to record keeping at the county level for the 20,000 Pennsylvanians currently held in local jails. This piece of legislation, something I drafted in Mary Jo's office. It passed the Judiciary Committee, chaired by our neighboring Rep Briggs. We work closely with other representatives. It received the official support and endorsement of the Pennsylvania chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union. And in this session, it will go before the House. Very excited by the piece. It was the result of years of research, my research in criminal justice systems. If you'd like to learn more information can be found in a piece I wrote for Penn Law. But thank you very much for the question. It's exciting, something I'm quite passionate about.
Thank you, Leo. Jason.
I think it might be my turn.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Correct. Andrea, you are next.
Oh, okay. I've not worked specifically in Harrisburg to getting bills passed. I have at the municipal level worked to get a lot of legislation passed. And I've worked with counselors on the local level to get things passed. And I've worked on the federal level to get specifically the enhanced tax credits of the Affordable Care Act passed and re-upped again so people could afford their health insurance. Without those health subsidies, small business owners are seeing their health care costs explode. And I've worked with various reps in Congress to help advocate on behalf of small business owners and those who desperately need healthcare coverage, and having these tax credits passed make the difference between being able to afford coverage and not being able to afford coverage. So I've worked with committees. I've worked with, as I've said before, I've advocated before the Senate Help Committee on behalf of small businesses. So it's not totally dissimilar. It has similar processes, and that's the way I have advocated on behalf of healthcare. So
great. Thank you. And now Jason.
Thank you. So I have certainly helped many bills from their inception throughout the process. And also another measure of success in Harrisburg sometimes is stopping bad attacks from Republicans. So I think probably one of the first bills that showcases my serious chops in the legislature is when I worked on the Pennsylvania Safe Schools Act in 2012. So that was my first big bill that I helped draft. Leading this statewide civil rights organization, we work with families and young people who have dealt with really horrifying situations of bullying and school violence. And so this bill would modernize Pennsylvania's antiquated law on safe schools. And so for that bill, not only getting it, through introduced, of course, but I secured over 100 co-sponsors, which is really unheard of for many, many pieces of legislation. Over 50 Republicans and over 50 Democrats. Me and my team going door to door to every legislator we could find, half of the House of Representatives supporting a bill in a bipartisan way. And I think that, as we continue to work on this issue, and I will as a state representative, we can see it across the finish line. But I have worked on scores of bills, and I'm happy to talk with you or anyone who asks about them in the future, and we'll post more on my website. Thank you.
Thank you. And before I go on to the next question, just to let everybody know, the questions will be put into the chat for anyone who misses them to help follow along. So the next question is, what legislative guardrails would you advocate for to ensure transparency, accountability, and oversight when federal law enforcement or paramilitary style agencies operate in our communities? And Leo, I will start with you.
Sure, thank you. I appreciate the question. Just this past Thursday, I was at the ICE Out Philadelphia City Council meeting regarding specific ICE Out legislation. I was there with my campaign team. We were there taking careful notes. We'd reviewed the legislation ahead of time and we're watching the process. I think we could learn a lot from what neighboring jurisdictions are doing, particularly regarding the city council work. I'm absolutely in favor of demasking ICE, other sorts of paramilitary entities, as well as bringing, not removing anonymity in the sense of adding badges, clear badge numbers, identification to agents. I think that's critical. I'm also familiar with the work that my state senator, Amanda Capoletti, has done. I think that's outstanding stuff to push enforcement away from Commonwealth buildings. I think that's also a great start. Generally speaking, when it comes to legislative guardrails for transparency, oversight, I think what we need to do is make sure that we have access to, the entities, the agents that are performing actions, and that comes from stripping anonymity responsibly, carefully. I'm in favor of what's been happening, starting the process in Philadelphia, Amanda Capoletti. Also, the work of DA Krasner, I think, has been fantastic as well. I appreciate the question. I think it's something we need to work on now. And I'm also going to shout out the Narberth meeting tomorrow night, something we ought to be at if we're concerned about these guardrails.
Thank you. And Andrea, if you could take the question now.
Sure, thank you. I think we all know that ICE is pretty much out of control right now. They're arresting grandmas, 5-year-old boys. They're arresting our friends, our neighbors, small business owners. They're really out of control. We must address it at all levels of government. At the federal level, we need to cut off funding for a department that is regularly violating constitutional and human rights until proper oversight and guardrails are implemented. In the state house, we must back legislation that protects the rights of all residents, regardless of their immigration status. There are a couple of bills out there right now that are very interesting. HB 1880, the Officer of Visibility Act. I think it's very important that we demask these agents and have transparency in who is doing what, and know who is violating the rights and hold them accountable. HB 1968, Hold ICE Accountable for Unlawful Search and Seizures Practices Act, is another one that's currently in the House. And again, it kind of speaks for itself, but we need to hold them accountable for their illegal acts. There are other pieces of proposed legislation that prohibit state dollars from being spent on federal immigration enforcement, to document ICE civil liberties violations, and to guarantee access to legal counsel for immigrants facing deportation or detention.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you.
Jason.
The president and his administration are assaulting, detaining, and killing Americans and immigrants alike. This is not justice. This is not public safety. This is state-sanctioned violence. And ICE just must be dissolved in order to rebuild credibility in American governance and democracy. So with this need for organization right now, in order to do this efficiently, as a state legislator, I will be a leading organizer to support and amplify the groups and community members who have been on the ground already doing this work for the past year and longer. They have been responding to raids, documenting abuses, protecting families, and holding the line while too many have looked away. As your state representative, I will do everything I can to protect our communities. This includes showing up against injustice, advocating for reform with every platform available, and supporting the ongoing work of local and federal partners to help our neighbors. Resistance to this corruption must be visible, coordinated, and rooted in the leadership of those most impacted. And as your state rep, I will be on the front lines with you. I posted a full statement on my position regarding ICE just several days ago, the morning of the raid in the situation in Penn Wynn. I will firmly support the bills that I listed, which include prohibiting the state from working with ICE, Officer Visibility Act, ensure that we document and take action on ICE abuses when they happen in Pennsylvania. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. And Megan.
Yeah. So I'll be honest, I'm really scared. I mean, ICE is here, like I said, and everyone has mentioned here, you know, they have come to our communities. They are unlawfully terrorizing us, committing civil liberties violations, rounding up 5-year-olds, murdering people in the street. And we have to do all we can to fight back against ICE. And there are things that we could do at the state level and that I would support. And that includes prohibiting state funding from being spent on ICE, documenting ICE complaints and giving the Attorney General and local DAs power to do so, preventing local police from being able to go into partnership agreements with our municipal local governments, ensuring that law enforcement officers are not hiding who they are not masking or, you know, hiding their identity, and stopping federal agents from entering hospitals and schools and polling locations unless they have a warrant or a court order. We need to bar ICE from using our state properties to stage their crazy, you know, operations, or if they can even call them operations. And we need to require that agents who are operating, federal agents operating in our state, are meeting the requirements of local law enforcement. And finally, as a state rep who has worked in and who has, as a state rep, I would make our office a safe place for all and make sure that immigrants are aware of their rights through informational sessions.
Thank you, Megan. And now we're going to move on to the next question. And Andrea, I'll start with you. And the question is, what is your approach to AI legislation?
It's a really interesting question. AI is here, and we're not going to put the genie back in the box. There are very, very many benefits, and there's very, very many scary things that come with AI. I think you have to approach it with something to guide and put up guidelines and make sure that it doesn't run amok. One of the areas that I'm concerned about use of AI is in insurance companies reviewing people's medical records in order to deny medicines or to deny surgeries based on input that it comes up with. I think having a human oversight would be very protective in a situation like that. AI can be full of mistakes, and it can be full of historical racist data when it's coming to look at like medical records. So I think in order to counter that, you need a human eyes to make sure it's not going off half-cocked in the wrong direction, because AI only knows what it's been told. It's not making moral judgments. It needs to have oversight.
Thank you. And next, Jason, what is your approach to AI legislation?
So AI, I think, has incredibly promising opportunities for our economy and society, but I do believe that it should be approached with serious caution and control. I don't believe that AI should replace humans. It's a weird sentence to say out loud in 2026, but what I am very concerned about, though, is the Trojan horse of all of these AI data centers. And so these centers are crushing to local environmental and energy resources where they've been sited, and there have been discussions about them being placed as close as Conshohocken or Chester County. The energy needs and resource depletion caused by these exploitative centers raise electricity prices and dry out communities. Every resident could be paying hundreds of dollars more a year in electric bills if they set up shop here. So I will be your advocate against these centers being sited near our communities and press on industry to improve their practices. I'm grateful that this morning the governor in his budget address announced this new proposed plan called Grid in his budget, which would provide parameters for these AI data centers to operate in Pennsylvania. So I'm very interested in working on and building on this plan with the governor to rein in some of these predatory billionaire-backed warehouses, which will just lead to higher electricity bills, lower home prices, noise, environmental degradation, but in a way that allows for our local communities to have autonomy to block them altogether or site projects where appropriate.
Thank you. Megan.
So I think that AI, is promising in a lot of ways, but, also feel that there has to be guardrails in place. I was talking to someone the other day and they were, I'm a former teacher, and they were saying how they were a teacher, they're currently a teacher, and how, students were using AI to just like turn in papers and to write their papers for them. And that just like crushed me as a teacher, an English teacher who taught, grammar and how to write, because it's like there's no point in learning it anymore. But they're such important skills. So I would approach AI legislation as I would approach any complex issue, and that is, bringing the right stakeholders to the table, letting the best ideas of how we can regulate, come to the forefront, working with our communities and experts within our own, voter base here that have expertise, and really listening to the way that the voters would like legislation to be voted on and written about in Harrisburg. And I have that experience, working within state government as a chief of staff for years and in constituent services. So I would just approach that as how I would approach any other complex issue.
Thank you. And Leo.
Thank you. I appreciate the question. I'll just say this. I'm going to go big here. I believe the last question touches upon the potential of looming fascism, looming authoritarianism, and the question of AI touches on the notion of us entering a new Gilded Age. I'm deeply concerned about AI and the notion that it is fundamentally changing our communities, the economic structure of this country, this state, and the social contract as we know it. I've actually worked on AI policy with Penn's foreign policy think tank, the Perry World House, with a team of international researchers at the Telecommunications Union. I was actually part of the drafting of international AI legislation. That's a very long process, but I'll just hit on a few key things here. Number one, we need to protect our children. Two, we need to protect our jobs. And three, we need to protect our communities. When it comes to protecting our children, I speak specifically of the dangers of deepfake pornography. Broadly speaking, we could extrapolate deepfake concerns to, lead to election manipulation for another. When it comes to jobs, I mean, clearly it's the outsourcing of jobs, particularly sort of research work is what I think of as a researcher, to artificial intelligence entities. And then three, protecting our communities. It's not just environmental, it's electoral as well. Referencing deepfake election manipulation and environmental degradation. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. And the next question starts with Jason, and it is, what is your approach to increasing accessibility and keeping healthcare costs down?
So the status quo of healthcare in this country is broken by design. Many of us have, I'm sure, have the experience of not being able to find a doctor covered by our insurance or being charged exorbitant out-of-pocket expenses. There has got to be state oversight to ensure hospitals serving the public good cannot be quickly sold to bad actors and private equity to be liquidated. The recent hospital closures in Chester County particularly have caused unacceptable wait times in our local healthcare facilities. I think many of you know I'm very close to my 99-year-old grandmother, and just a few months ago, she was diagnosed with pneumonia and had to wait hours at the ER in Bryn Mawr to get help. We have excellent healthcare providers, and they need to be supported by healthcare systems to ensure excellent care. Healthcare, including abortion access, are human rights. When healthcare access is structured for profit alone, we all end up paying more premiums and lives are lost. The state has a responsibility to ensure healthcare access for everyone, and until then, we must have safeguards to require insurance companies charge reasonable rates for comprehensive and transparent coverage and hold them fully accountable when they don't deliver on the services they promise. I'm not afraid to go toe-to-toe with healthcare companies or insurance companies. I support legislation that provides for healthcare system accountability and transparency around prices, mergers and closures, insurance company accountability related to unfair denials and plan changes, ensuring access to affordable healthcare plans and backing of public options for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. And next, Megan.
So healthcare is a very key part of my campaign. I am particularly really, focused on women's health. And as a young woman myself, thinking of starting a family with my partner and having kids, the decision on how, when, and where, to have a child is very personal. I also, a few years ago, was on Medicaid myself when I was going through a difficult time and was unemployed and not on my parents' health care. And so healthcare is really important. It is the costs of healthcare are way too high. I'm really happy that in our last budget, the state worked to allow Penny to start a pilot program that would provide direct subsidies to those on Penny, because again, the federal government is horrible and, got rid of those subsidies. So that's something that I support. I support getting rid of facility fees and surprise medical bills, and making sure that if there are any potential mergers of hospitals, that the Attorney General has the ability to oversee that and to approve those. And something last thing I just will touch on this is that we really need to make sure that we do not have maternal health deserts in our Commonwealth, and we need to create maternal care access zones. And that is a bill that Representative Curry currently has in the state that I would support.
Thank you. Leo.
I appreciate the question. Working at Mary Jo Daley's office, current representative, working in her office, I would attend her town halls with her. At one of her constituent town hall events, we met a gentleman, a constituent, a member of the district, who owns a local pharmacy, a small family-run pharmacy, and he told us that he's completely out of luck, given the encroaching nature of increasingly conglomerated pharmacy benefit managers. The conglomeration of PBMs is just one example. It is a symptom, it is a suggestion of where Medicare or Medicaid, the medical field generally is going. That scares me deeply. It worries me greatly. I think what we saw there, what drove that gentleman to a very difficult financial position, what's driving many others like him, local pharmacists, is particularly the gouging of the consumer, the gouging of the patient, essentially the manipulation for people who have nowhere else to go. The inelastic demand of healthcare is what frightens me greatly. I think what we need to see moving forward is not only the streamline of current systems like Penny, eliminating unnecessary paperwork and roadblocks, but also the breaking up of large conglomerates, the regulation of mergers. All of that is absolutely critical. Healthcare is not only a nice to have, it is an absolute necessity. It is something we all must have access to. It is a right. Thank you.
Thank you. And Andrea.
There once was a famous politician who said, "I've got a plan for that." And I'm following her lead. I've got a plan for reducing healthcare costs, because this has been something I've been fighting for the last 15 years as a small business owner who has struggled to pay the outrageous cost of insurance for someone with a pre-existing condition. There's a whole lot of things I'm going to try and get through. I'd like to enforce price transparency, get rid of mystery medical bills, which is a problem. I'd like to regulate healthcare acquisitions, which limits competition and forces prices up. That's always a problem. I'd like to subsidize insurance premiums. Megan said that they've gotten rid of the subsidy, which isn't quite correct. They've gotten rid of the enhanced tax subsidy. The regular subsidies still exist, but if you are making over a certain percentage of the federal poverty level, those subsidies have been reduced, ballooning people's healthcare costs. I've been fighting at the federal level, trying to make sure that they re-up those enhanced tax subsidies. And there has been some talk in Pennsylvania of coming up with their own tax subsidies. And it won't be as much as federal tax subsidies, but it will be something, and that will be help. I'd like to mandate coverage for essential services and codify that as directed in the Affordable Care Act, and make sure if that goes away, we are still protected. There are a number of other things. Happy to go into it if you contact me.
Thank you. And next is Megan, we'll start with you. And if you could tell us what are the top three committees you'd like to be on in priority order and why?
So the first committee I would like to be on in Harrisburg in the House would be Housing and Community Development. I feel like that is really where my pillar of affordability would be able to work on legislation surrounding. And that is an important committee that is focused on bringing, grant funding and different programs into our communities. And that is something that I'm really passionate about. Working in state government, I've already brought in, money directly into our communities here. The second is the health committee, because I'm also another key pillar of mine is focusing on accessibility and affordability of healthcare, particularly women's health and reproductive access and maternal health. And then finally, another committee I'd like to be on is transportation. Everything revolving public transportation, our roads, our bridges. This is the economic engine, of our Commonwealth and of our communities. And so that is the third committee that I would really like to be focused on in Harrisburg.
Great, thank you. Leo.
Thank you for the question. I appreciate it. Something I've been thinking about since the Penn Valley Civics asked the same question. But my top three are going to be education, transportation, labor, and industry. My top three policies generally are public transit, public education, and reproductive freedoms. As such, these three aren't surprising. Education. I am a public school graduate. I'm very proud of it. I graduated from Lower Merion High School just down the street. It's an absolutely crucial pipeway. It's a necessity. It's a long-term investment in the community. Transportation. Number two, I'm a commuter. Just this morning, I took the train to the city, back again. It was a great train ride today. It was just about 10 minutes late on the way down, 10 minutes late on the way back. It's not bad, but we've got to have that. It's not only an economic necessity, it's a social and community good. Three, labor and industry. I'm very proud to have been a labor organizer at the University of Pennsylvania, largest employer, largest landowner in southeastern Pennsylvania, at least in the city of Philadelphia. I was a negotiating committee member. I was a bargaining committee member for OPEIU, Local 153 United RAs at Penn. I understand how important organized labor is. And with that note, I'll end on one point. I understand what solidarity looks like. I understand the need for a cohesive democratic House. So honestly, I'm going to whatever committee the House needs me to be in. Wherever the House Democrats need me, I'm there. It's not about my preference, but those would be my top three.
Thank you. And Andrea, what are the top three committees you'd like to be on in priority order and why?
My top committee would be health. As I've said before, addressing healthcare costs is one of my number one concerns. If you don't have your health, you have nothing. If you can't afford healthcare, you don't have your health. So that would be my number one priority. My second priority would be the Committee on Aging. We have an aging population. I was a caretaker for a mother with Alzheimer's, and I understand the frustrations of dealing with elderly parents and navigating the systems of nursing homes and care and long-term care for parents when you're trying to balance a family, kids, and a whole life. So I think we need to find solutions for aging parents and those of us who may be getting a little older. I think that is a very, very crucial population that we need to protect and help. My third committee I'd like to be on is the Commerce Committee. Having been a small business owner and understanding the needs of small business. And by the way, small business are businesses that have less than 500 employees. So it's not as small as you think. I happen to be a micro business, but I understand the needs of business owners and businesses that provide jobs. They add enhancement to our communities, and they're struggling, frankly. And I'd like to be able to be in a position to help them.
Thank you. And Jason.
I love this question. I've been getting it at my meet and greets across the district recently. And so just as way background for folks, when you serve on a committee, you have a bit of an elevated voice on setting the agenda of the bills that get passed through that committee of the House floor. So my top three would be environmental and natural resource protection, health, and appropriations. So for environmental and natural resource protection, I'm an environmental attorney. I serve as a counsel for the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, working on waterways and wetlands, air quality, and environmental justice, bringing together all of my environmental experience. And I believe I would be the only serving legislator who's an environmental attorney. I would be uniquely positioned to be one of the strongest fighters for environmental protection in the legislature. On health, as I shared before, these systems are broken by design, and we need sharp, skilled people on this committee helping navigate the policies that we need to have in place to protect us in Pennsylvania. So certainly on this committee, I can be in a position to help protect the ACA, prevent private equity from taking our hospitals, and fight to lower drug prices. And finally, on approps, this is a major committee in which you can ultimately have an impact on all state agencies. To work with the administration on promoting the right message on why we need to fund certain programs is critical. On this committee, I would have the opportunity to ask direct questions to agency leaders on their agendas and use the platform to draw attention to issues that need additional funding and support on. So thank you. Those are my top three.
Thank you. And the last question, almost last question is, how are you going to address the SEPTA crisis? And Leo, we'll start with you.
It's a great question. I appreciate it, particularly having, ridden SEPTA frequently, regularly. I'm a big fan of SEPTA. This is what I'll say. When it comes to solving the SEPTA crisis, we need bipartisan agreement. We need to pass a bipartisan transportation infrastructure support package. And what we need is not just short-term Band-Aid fixes, $200 million, capital funding bandages. What we need is a sustainable future. I've specifically talked about on my Instagram in regards to legislation I think is very exciting, where we would tax rideshare companies and use that revenue to support public transit. I think this is a step in the right direction. When we're thinking about bringing together that bipartisan coalition, I would like to briefly consider how I believe I'm best qualified to bring that kind of negotiation together. My strategy is radical presence, being there, making the connections with every single representatives, creating not just the legislation, but the values that underlie it. What we're all trying to do is move through our communities. I have family in Schuylkill County, Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania. Most of my family's here in Montco. We both have the same realities. I think recognizing that is the strong point. But once again, I'd also like to say, as the labor candidate, the union laborers that make our public transit systems run are crucial to this conversation. This conversation cannot be had without them. I envision a table that includes union voices, strongly democratically backed. Thank you.
Thank you. And Andrea, how will you address the SEPTA crisis?
I think the SEPTA crisis brings together a lot of my skills as both a trial lawyer with negotiations and as a municipal employee negotiating different solutions to problems. I think we're going to have to be creative here. And this is where I say we have to cross-pollinate issues in order to solve them. One of the issues I've been looking at is Josh Shapiro's Rural Health Transformation Plan. We are having trouble getting the votes from rural Pennsylvania to fund our SEPTA because they're not invested in SEPTA in our southeast transportation. You have to look at what do they need. They need medical centers in rural health Pennsylvania, and there's a whole policy paper that he has put together on how to transform policies out in rural Pennsylvania. My idea is to solve problems and make people's lives better. If we can solve their problem by getting them a medical center so that farmers are not 30 minutes away from the nearest center when they have a heart attack and they have a chance to survive, or the maternal health of mothers out there, they have a chance to have the doctors they need to have healthy babies. We get them what they need in exchange for their promise to vote on what we need. And what we need is funds to boost the capital improvement plan of SEPTA, because we don't need trains that are catching on fire as they go into Philadelphia.
Thank you. Jason?
I will fight for SEPTA. I believe in SEPTA. SEPTA keeps our region moving. Pennsylvania is bad on SEPTA and public transit. We're not like other states that have figured out how they can have the flexibility to spend more, like Massachusetts, where they raise revenues from various sources that we don't. So I definitely look at what has been said today in the budget address and in recent conversations with legislative Democratic leaders. For today, we can start to raise new revenues to direct to SEPTA, like taxing adult use cannabis or skill games or digital ads. But we have a larger, much larger question about funding in our state government related to closing the Delaware loophole, addressing our state constitution, uniform clause on taxation. We also have plans that have been introduced that are supported by Representative Daley and Senator Capoletti on taxing unearned income at or near the billionaire level. There are many new ways that we can bring in funding, but that's what we have to think about, short-term and long-term. How are we going to sustainably fund our public transportation system in Pennsylvania? Listen, I am all about making sure we are speaking truth to power. I was standing at the press conference in Narberth last year with our local leaders and union leaders in support of SEPTA funding, but we have got to get the message out there. And I will use all of my experience and relationships to get these stories and information out to places like Altoona and everywhere we need to start flipping the votes to that would get us to support SEPTA with state funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan.
So public transit it's critical to our communities and our economy. It gets people to their jobs. It gets people to their, doctor's appointments. It keeps cars off our roads and, helps with congestion. And our buses and trains are the lifeblood of many of our small businesses and individuals in our area. Across our entire district alone, we have four separate regional rail lines with 8 stops and more if you include, all of Lower Merion to include the 149th district as well. And so it's not just a SEPTA issue either. There's public transit issues going on all across the state. But put simply, we must fund SEPTA, period. And in order to do that, there are a lot of ideas put forward tonight. Of course, the governor is talking about finding other sources. But really, what I see, because I'm a staffer in this, and I've just seen how Republicans continue to play, political football with this topic. We need to literally flip the Senate. That we need to flip the Senate, expand our House majority, and have Democrats be in place for the votes to pass SEPTA funding. And that is something that I think is very important for me as hopefully the next endorsed candidate for this seat, is to get to work right away, flipping seats and making sure we have the votes to get critical things like funding SEPTA done.
Thank you. And then the next question is, and we'll start with Andrea. What are your top 3 priorities and how will you address them?
My top 3 priorities are, number 1, funding for SEPTA. I believe that's a quality of life issue for us in the 148. It affects transportation. It affects ability to get to healthcare, people to get to jobs. It affects traffic on our roads. The Delaware Valley Regional Planning Authority has said that if we lose SEPTA, we're going to see an extra 275,000 cars on the road every day. Can you imagine the traffic if that happens? We will also lose approximately in this region $50,000 worth of equity in our homes without a capable public transit system. So I think that is a massive priority for if I am honored enough to get to Harrisburg. I think healthcare costs is another major priority that I would like to make sure we address it and we preserve the health and safety of our residents and ability of people to have small businesses. If you have a pre-existing condition, I think that's vital. Other day-to-day costs are costs of utilities, public utilities. I think the federal government has eliminated alternate sources of energy, including solar and wind. I think we need to start subsidizing that a little bit on the state level and bring them in to produce competition and reduce utility costs. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And Jason.
So as I mentioned before, my top three: affordability in healthcare and utilities, environmental protection, and infrastructure development. So going right to the source on where these rising prices are coming from with our healthcare systems and our utilities companies, we have to rein in bad actors and incentivize decisions for these entities to make them lower their costs to consumers. We do this through legislation and regulation, accountability and transparency with these agencies, with these entities and their governing boards, including the Public Utility Commission. For environmental protection, there are many crucial steps that we can fight for in terms of getting this work accomplished through the legislature and leveraging the seat for administrative action, especially in ways that focus on economic development. So in Harrisburg, I will help lead the fight to get Pennsylvania back on track to address climate change following our withdrawal from the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. In terms of environmental justice, we have to look at policies to no longer support systems that take our trash and burn it in Chester, poisoning the children and adults of this community there. We also have to look at AI data centers, diverting waste into composting and recycling, and so much more. And for infrastructure development, the constantly ripped up roads and bridges in disrepair and a public transit system hanging on by a thread. These are not just daily inconveniences, but barriers to real economic growth. And so I will do everything in my power to make sure we are addressing reforms to tightening project development. It shouldn't take 10 years for the state to make decisions impacting our infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrea.
I
Oh,
think
sorry, Megan. Megan.
that's okay.
Sorry.
I'm still learning the order too.
Yeah.
All right. So my top three priorities are affordability and accessibility of healthcare, particularly women's health, affordability in general, and democracy. And so particularly when it comes to women's health, you know, Harrisburg is a place that has a lot of men in it, and we need to work to continue Mary Jo Daley's legacy on advocacy of women's health issues and support legislation that would provide, for example, menstrual hygiene products in our schools through a state grant program. That's a piece of legislation from Reps Parker and Hill Evans that I would support. We need to make sure that insurance is covering contraceptions and eliminating copays and pre-authorizations in order to just obtain, you know, general contraceptives. And that's a bill that Senator Capoletti is spearheading. And we need to make sure, I did touch on this, that we have maternal care access zones to get rid of the health deserts that we have here in Pennsylvania. And we need to make sure that we have coverage of therapies that are used to treat menopausal symptoms. And that's a bill that Rep. Hanbich has in the House. And I did touch on affordability and democracy a little bit already. So I'll leave that at that because of the time.
Thank you. And Leo.
Absolutely. Simple 1, 2, 3. Public transit, public schools, guarantee reproductive freedoms. These are my top three priorities. We discussed public transit, but I'll give a brief overview. What we're talking about here is reliable systems that are accessible to everybody in the community. We're investing in our systems for into perpetuity. We're respecting the union labor that makes these systems run, and we're bringing them into the table, into the conversation. That's public transit. Public education. It is the pathway to a better future. It is the best long-term investment we can make in a community. I would work to continue making becoming a teacher more accessible. The Shapiro administration has done some great work with this, but it's still, pretty expensive to become a teacher in Pennsylvania. And then the legally, minimum for a teacher salary is $18,500, which is absurd. I mean, of course, many teachers are making, more than that, good deal more than that, but like just to have that as the bottom, it kind of shows a disrespect in our system. Like we can double that. William Penn, 2023, Pennsylvania Supreme Court case suggested that our current system for education funding is unconstitutional. It needs to change. Reproductive freedom, right now there are too many barriers. The Center for Reproductive Freedom describes our current legislative climate, our current legal climate is hostile. Absolutely unacceptable. Those are my three: public transit, public schools, reproductive freedoms.
Thank you. And so because there are things that happen that we may not expect, we have a little bit more time. And so we're going to add an additional question. And so we're going to start with Megan. And I know we weren't prepared for this, but these are the things that happen. And the question is, how do you approach education in Pennsylvania?
Daniela,
Should it
we
be
are,
Andrea's turn? Sorry.
yeah, we're starting with Andrea. No, we're starting with Jason. I'm sorry.
Okay, great. Well, we'll start with Jason.
I'm ready. Okay. So public education is a constitutional right in Pennsylvania. I am proud to be a graduate of Kinwood Elementary School and Ballacombe Middle School. Public education is the backbone of a functioning democracy. High quality education, access for all powers our economy and ensures thriving communities with neighbors who think critically and take care of one another. We have excellent schools in our communities because we pay for them through property taxes. Other communities do not have that luxury, and they have serious challenges. Our state has to do more. It must do more. Even the state Supreme Court has directed this. So until we start raising new revenues, we are still hitting our heads against the wall. We have to be exceptionally attentive to making sure students with disabilities, IEPs, are fully supported with the necessary resources. I will fiercely fight for our own school districts, Lower Merion School District and Colonial School District, working with the school board members to make sure that they receive the necessary state support that they request. We still need and rely on state support, even in Lower Merion and Colonial School Districts. Every student in our district should have access to food, busing, playgrounds, mental health care that they need. We are carrying massive debt in Lower Merion School District, and I know our school board is working towards getting to the other side of this. But all the things that we need, we still need support from our state for our local school districts. We have to close the adequacy gap in Pennsylvania, address charter school reform, and so many more things, and I'm committed to working on them. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And then we're going to go to Megan.
Thank you. So, our state Supreme Court has ruled that the way that we fund our public schools is unconstitutional, and that we should be following what's called the fair funding formula. And so I'm glad to see that in Governor Shapiro's budget address today, he has a lot of increase in funding for public schools, including for mental health in our schools and for special education, because that's critical as well. And we need to have more funding for that. So I support, increased funding for education. Education is so fundamental to our future, our next generation being, educated well, and every student, no matter, what their zip code is, should be able to have that quality education. So my approach is that we need to focus on reforms in other areas such as charter school reform, so that we and continue to make sure that we are funding public education fully and fairly. And, as a former teacher, I see that as being very critical. I do kind of miss teaching and miss my students and seeing all that they can do. And we need to make sure that everyone has the resources that they need to do that.
Great. Thank you. And next, Leo.
Sure, I appreciate the question. It's a priority of mine. I'm the only candidate to have graduated from our public school district. I'll start on that one. I'm very grateful for the opportunity. It's formed me as the person I am today, Lower Merion High School. Regarding education, we all believe the education system should be better funded, that we just got to put more resources into it. But my real question is, how are we going to do that? I think that's a more uncomfortable question, but I propose two answers. Number one is closing tax loopholes for the richest Pennsylvanians. And number two, more, a little bit more out there, but very important to consider right now, is a progressive tax in Pennsylvania. At the moment, we have a flat tax. At the moment, that's our interpretation of the state constitution. This would be an uphill battle, but it's something that we ought to seriously consider to get the resources to fund our public schools, to make the best investment we can in our communities. There is simply no better investment in not only the direct community we're in, but in our neighbors, in those on the other side of the state, than public education. Public education brings not only opportunity, but the belief that one could access greater options. It's simply fantastic. It's something we need to support. I'm delighted to discuss education. It's one of my main pillars of policy. Thank you very much for the question.
Great. Thank you. And Andrea.
Thank you so much. So as far as education goes, PA doesn't fund schools pro rata. They use something called the fair funding formula, which turns out isn't particularly fair at all. We are doing very well in Lower Merion, and I would advocate, for keeping the standards high in our town. But our neighbors in Philadelphia are really struggling. And a rising tide lifts all boats. We all do better when our neighbors in Philadelphia do better. 95% of Philadelphia public schools lack a basic functioning library. We need to help do a fairer system with education across the board, because like I said, when everybody does better, it helps us all. We get a better educated public, we get more job opportunities for people and better employees to choose from in our district. Better jobs equal better tax revenue for not only Philadelphia, but the entire state. So it is something that will helping do better in our neighbors counties. Will do something to help us all over in the 148. If we're looking for ways to get extra funding for schools, we have multiple things to look at. We can look at recreational marijuana, which can bring in as much as $400 million a year, and games of chance, which again could be up to another $400 million a year. We can look at a lot of.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrea. And so thank you for taking our curve. We appreciate that things come up that we are not always prepared for. And we now are going to close the session with final points from each of you. We will start with Megan and then go to Leo and Andrea. And we've asked that you don't prepare something canned, but that you answered this question specifically. If there is anything you didn't get to talk about tonight, but you feel is important to you, please share. You each have 3 minutes, and we'll start with Megan.
Thank you. I want to just start by thanking everyone who is attended tonight. I know we all have a lot going on in our lives, and the fact that you all took the time to come out or come out in your living rooms or wherever you're sitting to listen to all of us tonight is really great for our democracy. And I also want to shout out again to DCLMN for all the work you've done to put this together. Look, the issues that we're facing are dire. We talked about a lot of them tonight: ICE in our communities, affordability crisis, how we're going to fund our public schools. And, my first nephew, Henry, was born just 5 days ago, right here in our district, the 148th, in Lower Merion at Lincoln. And I think about him and his future, and that is my why. All right, this is where my drive comes from to run for this seat, because I love my new nephew born right here in our district. I love our community, and I'm really passionate about the work I do every day in service of our communities. I am the only candidate who, as a chief of staff, working in the Pennsylvania State House of Representatives, has worked on legislation, has built bipartisan coalitions through this role, and has cut through red tape to really help people get critical assistance that they need. I am the only candidate who is currently serving as a municipal elected official. I am the only candidate who has brought in immense amounts of grant funding into our communities. And I am the only candidate who is a proud Democratic committee person. All right. I am very proud to be a committee person. I know how hard it is. I've been knocking on the doors with a lot of you here on this call, talking to our neighbors, working to elect good Democrats. And I feel those issues deeply because I share in them. And it is going to take the grassroots effort of committee people like us working hard to make sure that we have a Democratic trifecta in Harrisburg. And I want to be a part of that trifecta and be able to work from day one to start bringing effective leadership here in our community. So I am asking for your support to those on this call and for committee people specifically for your vote at our upcoming convention. And until then, I really hope we can, continue the conversation and that we can continue the hard work, all of us together, to continue to make sure that our democracy stays strong, because we know we need strong democracy now more than ever. And we have a lot of work to do to kind of bring back our democracy and help our communities. So thank you again for hosting tonight and everyone who's taken the time to listen.
Thank you. Leo.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'd like to discuss the differentiation of myself. I'd like to discuss my candidacy. I'll begin by discussing my unique proximity to the issues: public school grad, public transit commuter. I'd also like to point to my unique experience working for the constituents of the 148th in the office of State Representative Mary Jo Daley. Work for Mary Jo, I saw what the constituents of the 148 needed from their state government. I was there at the front desk. I was the frontline constituent service responder, worked on quite a variety of issues. That is invaluable experience. I know what excellence in this position looks like. Having worked with Mary Jo, I know how this job can be done extraordinarily well. So unique proximity and unique experience in that respect. I'm willing to talk about uncomfortable issues. Progressive tax, for example. That is a bit of a hair-raising proposition, but I think it's very important. Union labor. It's something we haven't really brought up in this conversation, but it's something that means a lot to me. I think these are the issues we need to discuss. It's not just creeping authoritarianism that we need to be worried about. It's the very real possibility of a new Gilded Age. That's what we have to consider. I'd also like to discuss the perspective that I bring to this table. I'm the young candidate. I'm 22. I'm 3 decades younger than the party average in Harrisburg. I'm about a decade younger than the youngest elected Democrats. I believe I'm an opportunity to bring a new voice and a new perspective to the conversation. But it's not just my age. It's the way I organize young people. My campaign is young, scrappy, and hungry, to quote from Hamilton. My campaign director is the president of Penn Democrats. My communications director is the president of St. Joe's Democrats. We're building a community of passionate young people that care deeply about change. In a couple days, I'm very excited to announce some endorsements from a couple exciting young Democratic entities. Very excited about that. Put it in the, I guess, a little teaser trailer there. But that's who I am. That's what I bring to this seat. I bring a fundamental perspective that we currently lack. The youngest representatives in Harrisburg are all Republicans. All the 20-year-old representatives are Republicans. I refuse to let this continue to be the case. We are leaving a portion of the electorate on the table. I hate to see my peers continue to slide to the right, and I'm afraid to say part of the reason is because there are not young Democratic elected leaders in the way that I think we need. Let's broaden the coalition. Let's make the party stronger. Let's bring in new voters. Let's bring in new energy. That's what I want to see. Thank you so much for your time. Your consideration means the world. I'm always happy to connect. Please feel free to send me an email. Check out my website. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much, Lower Merion. Narberth, White Marsh.
Thank you. Andrea.
Thanks so much. Listen, this has been great, and it's really been an interesting night of sharing ideas and sharing solutions and trying to give our best to the audience. I am clearly the oldest person in this race. I have the most life experience. I have decades of experience that I bring to the table. As I said in my opening statement, I was a trial lawyer for 10 years. I've been a store owner for 22 years. I've been a caretaker for a parent. I understand the issues facing day-to-day life of the people in the 148. And while I congratulate Megan on her 1 month in municipal services, I spent a decade in municipal office solving problems. That's what I like to do. That's what my life has been about, solving people's problems and trying to enhance the quality of life of those around me. State government is filled with people who served in municipal government, including our very own Mary Jo Daley, who served in Narberth municipal government before heading off to off to Harrisburg, where she did a terrific job. And I'd like to thank Mary Jo for all the work she's done on everybody's behalf. Megan's boss was a mayor in a borough in Pennsylvania. So there are plenty of mayors in Harrisburg, former mayors and former municipal employees, because we're in the business of understanding what municipalities need, and how to solve it, and how to do the financing, and how regulations that we enact affect our public. It's understanding what the municipalities need is a really big step up in understanding how to best serve our municipalities. When you get to Harrisburg, it's about the relationships you make. It's about understanding the needs of different communities so that you can try and solve the problems of different communities. We have staff who will help with some of the logistics, and nobody's expected to know all the details of everything that they're entering into. But creating those relationships, solving the problems, is something I enjoy doing. It's something I've been doing. It's something I'd like to continue doing. It makes me feel like my purpose is served as I go through life. So I'd like to thank you for this opportunity. I'm open to questions. Please reach out and talk to me if you would like to know more. I'd like to know more about you. So let's connect, and I would love the opportunity to serve your needs.
Thank you, Megan.
Andrea.
And Andrea, sorry. You said, sorry. Thank you, Andrea. And to close out, Jason.
As we've heard tonight, there are many emergency needs right here in our district and across Pennsylvania. That's why we need a state representative for the 148th who is experienced and ready. We need something far beyond the expected status quo of politics. We can choose a different destiny now by electing an innovative and proactive attorney and organizer. This is exactly the type of energy we need to embolden in our state house seats. Because we're not going to solve everything overnight, but what I am going to do as your state representative is show up every single day and night to chip away one bill and one executive action at a time towards the future that we need. While we do the work to flip the Senate so that we can truly push through all the bold reforms necessary to make Pennsylvania thrive. I have spent most of my life in the trenches of this work, including at our state capitol and in our communities. The present moment makes it abundantly clear that who I am, what I stand for, how I operate is exactly the type of person we have got to get more of in these seats to make a difference. I was recently, or a few months ago, in a meeting with Senator Lisa Blunt Rochester from Delaware, and she said something really powerful, which was when she realized she was being called to public service by her community, I have nothing to lose and everything to give. And that's where I am right now as well. I'll continue to be out in our communities at your local events constantly, and we'll hold frequent town halls and youth forums. When you call, I will pick up. We know these are not good times, but it's time for the helpers to start getting elected. I am one of the helpers who is best positioned to be your strongest advocate in state government. Toni Morrison once wrote, well, we cannot be optimistic, we can be clear. We have some really challenging days ahead, but in community rooted in truth and power, we will rise to meet this moment and the moments to come. The March for Justice continues, and it goes right through this seat. I sincerely thank you for your consideration of support and hope to earn every voter's trust in this election ahead. Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you. Andrea, Leo, Jason, Megan, thank you so much for participating. I want to turn it over to the chairman of DCLMN, Robert Paul, to say some words.
Thank you so much, to the candidates, and more importantly, to all of you who stayed, all more than 100 of you who stayed to listen to this presentation. And we and the committee are very grateful for that and hope for your support in moving this election forward and in winning the election in November. And with that, I'm going to give it back to Daniela to talk about what we need and how you can help.
Thank you. And so before we wrap tonight, we just want to give a few simple ways to stay engaged. As the candidate said this evening, there are so many things that are happening that are hard to our eyes and ears, and it's all of us that can really make an impact. And so some ways to stay involved is please call your committee person and share feedback from tonight in advance of them going to the endorsement convention on February 18th. You can learn more about each of the candidates. We've put it into the chat on the right, each of their websites. And please stay involved. We have upcoming petition events to help candidates get on the ballot. If you're interested in knocking doors or gather petition signatures, you can email our campaign support chair, Sarah Atkins, who's on the website, whose contact is on the website. And please visit Mobilize and search for Lower Merion, and you will find different events. And most importantly, thank you so much for coming tonight. We really look forward to continuing to do all of this work together. Thank you. Bye.